Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival, Season 2, Episode 8, titled Nomad. The episode's description reads as follows. When Ben leaps as far as Egypt into an undercover CIA agent, caught in a dangerous game of international espionage, he must move quickly to save a woman's life. The episode was directed by my favorite, Chris Grismer. This is his third directorial stint, I believe. His last was on Closure Encounters. And the episode was written by Dean Gorgarius. Third episode for him as well.
Georgaris.
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 Okay.
I thought we fixed that one.
Yeah.
Spent a whole first season saying it wrong. I thought we had it down for season 2.
Yep, I guess not. But maybe when we do season 3. This is, like I said, this is his third episode. He was last... he last wrote SOS from last season. He's also serves as an executive producer along with Chris Grismer.
Yeah. Speaking of Chris Grismer, his name popped up on a show I was watching last night.
Oh, yeah?
In the credits. I mean, he was involved in multiple episodes, but I'm going through a watch of Kyle XY.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And
I didn't realize it was that far back. Huh. Kyle XY, that was like 2000s?
Early 2000s.
Yeah, okay.
I think 2007 or something. I never actually watched it before. It's one of those ones that was always kind of like, oh, I'll watch that sometime. And I never did.
That was kind of like a one-season show,
wasn't it? It's 3, actually.
3? Okay.
3 seasons. I'm almost done with it.
Okay.
And during season 2, we were seeing the name Tommy Thompson.
Really?
Yeah.
I knew that.
He did one episode and then executive produced on season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is interesting, seeing both Quantum Leaps represented in this show.
That is pretty cool. I didn't realize there was a crossover like that. I thought Chris Grismer was a relatively newcomer to the scene, but I guess not. Before going further, I'll tell you a couple things. When this is not a spoiler-free podcast, if you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap-related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel. All right, now that all that boring stuff is out of the way, we have shout-outs this week.
Yes.
Kelly M.
In response to our 207 video.
Yep. Kelly M., our research assistant, said that it was kind of funny that you brought up women not being able to read, because in the original script, one of the girls was supposed to bring up, wait, you can read? But it was apparently cut for time.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting pivot. From
the interviews that the other podcast put out during the past week, sounds like a lot of stuff was cut for time in this episode, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
I don't love the editing process.
No.
Because there's the things that are cut are always things that it's like, well, why did we cut that?
Right.
That would have been great. There had to have been some other boring moment we could have cut.
Right. We should have like 3-hour episodes, and I think we'd be satisfied.
I mean, yeah. Let's release the director's cut, like the full 90-minute episodes,
and then we could have like 6-hour podcasts.
I know, right?
All right, Chris Coleman says the burning of the witches thing was necessary for how they decided to resolve the plot with the rain. Yes, your beef was that they didn't use real history, and you were not the only one to feel that way. That was that there was many people who did not like this episode for that very reason.
Yeah,
and it wasn't the usual crowd. It wasn't the crowd that I will no longer acknowledge or talk about. It was people who generally defend the show.
Right. The general consensus I've seen is that a big chunk of the viewers were a lot harder on this episode than we were. I still liked it. I mean, I said that when we did the episode, but there were just things that I would have liked better.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, even other reviewers, were like, this was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. And the historical inaccuracy thing doesn't necessarily bother me as much, because then you can give me an education.
Right.
On the real history.
like I had said, it was kind of okay for me because they told us straight up, we're not in, if they ever claimed this was Salem, this was the Salem witch trials, I would have been really upset by it.
Right.
But they said it's not. They said, oh, we're trying to be like Salem. The town was being influenced by the things that had happened in Salem. So even though I don't love that they did that, I'm okay with it, you know? And you mentioned the people who we're not going to give agency to. I even saw them complaining about this episode. And I couldn't figure out why.
Well, that's the thing, is those people that I don't want to talk about never really have a...
usually I can understand
coherent point
what they're upset about, even if I 100% disagree with them. You know, they're racist and bigoted and have problems with diversity and inclusivity. And I'm not sure what in a kind of magic they had to complain about. I didn't see any of them citing exactly what, but they were, you know, saying, "Oh, these activist writers are at it again." Like, what are you even talking about? We're talking about something that happened hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about either. I know the post you're talking about.
I saw a couple of different posts like that, and I'm just like, what are you guys even talking about now?
Right.
Like, usually, like I said, I can at least understand what they're complaining about.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm completely, like, dumbfounded. What's the issue? We're talking about witches. Like,
right.
This has nothing to do with any of that.
Right, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I guess those are the type of people that just generally complain about the series in general.
Yeah.
So I don't pay them any mind, which is why I don't really air their opinions anymore.
Right, yeah. But, and I try not to. It's just the fact that I was, like, really stumped. Like, what is... What?
I did see your comment on one of those posts. All right. So David Rickman said that Ben saying I've been down that road before was a reference to Leaper X. I personally didn't take it that way. I thought it was more about the whole Addison situation, but the line was vague enough that you could take it any way you wanted to.
Yeah, and
it was open for interpretation.
I saw that conversation you were having with them, and I don't know. I can't even remember like exactly when that was said. I'd have to go back and watch the scene again.
It was towards the like the very end of the episode where they were debating whether to go and rescue that woman or not, and he was like, "Look, I'd been down the road of hatred before. It's not a good road," and that's how he was trying to convince Goody to go and help her.
Yeah, I'd have to watch the whole scene again to gather my opinion on that. But yeah, I'm sure it could apply to a lot of different things that Ben has been through. He's been through a lot.
David Rickman, I believe, is new to the channel. I don't think I've seen him comment on anything.
Well, welcome, David.
So welcome. And, you know, he has to be a good guy because he has a similar name.
Yeah.
Amanda had a couple of things to say. I basically just copy and pasted her comment because I find it difficult to summarize Amanda's opinions.
Okay.
But basically,
I'm going to try anyways.
Yes. Well, the first part of it, I think I can do.
Okay, go for it.
Basically, she says that the Ziggy should remember both timelines along with Al, that you wanted Al to remember both timelines. But they lost track of Sam, so she isn't so sure that Ziggy wouldn't also be on the new timeline. And then she disappeared down the same rabbit hole that we went into.
Yeah, it's a very complicated topic to try and...
Yeah, she said she would have to, continue to overthink things some more. And yeah, I feel that. So I'm just going to read the rest of her comment verbatim. This episode feels like a normalization episode that, at least for now, we have a baseline at PQL, which is Project Quantum Leap, where everyone has a role. We put Addison and Ben on the road to healing. Ian has no more secret problem. Magic's in a good spot. We are halfway through the season. Actually, I think we're a little bit more than halfway through the season at this point.
We are.
Yeah.
Just over halfway.
Right.
After 7.
Will we have a couple of seemingly business as usual leaps before something goes amiss? Not really.
Yeah, not based on what we saw in 208.
Right. This episode was a bit weird. I still enjoyed it and might as well have been chopping onions through the end of it. I'm guessing that means she cried.
Yeah.
Random, that's a better word. It's like someone had a bunch of ideas that they didn't know what to do with, so they gave all the ideas to someone else and said turn it into a single story. Someone could write an entire episode surrounding the Irish lady. I agree, she was indeed a fun character. And another shout out for my daughter.
Yes.
Who, when this podcast airs, will have turned 11 years old, which is a statement that makes me want to go cry somewhere. But for the sake of this podcast, I will hold it in until after the fact, and then I'll find somewhere alone to, bawl my eyes out.
Yes, happy birthday, Julia.
So the day that I am recording this, 12/12/12, is the day that her mother actually wanted her to be born because she wanted a 12/12 baby. That, according to a movie, there was a movie actually called 12/12/12 that indicated that the baby would turn into evil.
Yeah, that was a horror movie, wasn't it?
Yes, something along those lines. So I think I definitely dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
And so this is the last Quantum Leap podcast for this year, I believe. I don't think we're going to get another one.
This is our last new episode.
Right, yes. We might.
Who knows what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks.
We haven't really planned that yet. But since this is the one that has the biggest following, I will give my final shout out to my co-host Stacie. We've done a lot of work together that I'm proud of for this year. We've done some interviews with Deborah Pratt, Reed Price. None of that happens without you, so shout out to you.
Well, thank you. And I'll also give my mom a shout out. She had a birthday this week as well.
Yep.
On the 9th, she had a birthday. And you know who she shares her birthday with, I learned?
Who's that?
Bob Mann.
Oh, really?
Bob Mann from our other 2 shows that we covered. He's in both From and Sullivan's Crossing. So remind me to make sure we shout him out again later.
Yes.
We're going to be covering one of those shows.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to move on to some background information.
I have just a little bit. One thing I wanted to bring up is, remember I had mistook Ruby J for Holly Taylor, the actress that's in Manifest. And I was totally convinced it was her the first time I watched the episode. And if you remember last week, I was like, I really want to know, like, does anybody else think this? Or am I alone? Am I just crazy? I'm not alone.
I did see that.
I'm not alone. Tom H. on Facebook had made a whole post about how Melissa Roxburgh and Holly Taylor, both of Manifest, had now guest starred on Quantum Leap. Mm-hmm. And it was sad for me to correct them and say, actually, that wasn't Holly Taylor. But I'm so excited that you thought that.
Yes.
Because now I don't feel so alone. And actually, multiple people in the comments agreed that they look so much alike. So casting people out in the world, would love to see a project with Holly Taylor and Ruby J working together. They could play sisters. It would be awesome. Yeah. Because they look very similar. They have very similar facial expressions and just the way they present themselves. I'd love to see them both in something together. I think they would be a great pairing. And I only have one thing from the writer's room to share. They did have some other stuff, but it was stuff we already, like historical stuff that we already talked about in our covering up the episode last week. But the new piece of information is the black cat she's seen in this episode at the beginning. The cat on set's name was Mouser.
Mouser, that's
very similar to Shelley Thompson's cat.
Oh yeah,
Shelley
Thompson
that's right. has a cat named Mouse that appeared in one of our videos.
Yes.
And Mouser had to be rewarded with tuna after every take.
Oh,
so it sounds like they had a tough time getting Mouser to cross through the set the way they wanted him to.
It's a cat. You can't get a cat to do anything.
But they got the shot in the end. It turned out it was a really beautiful shot.
Yeah.
They did a great job in the end. I'm curious how long exactly it took to film the cat.
Okay.
And that's all I have on 207. I do have one more piece of stuff to cover before, well, actually 2 things, because we'll get to this as well.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to say is a couple weeks ago I made a poll, and I meant to share these results when we recorded our 207 episode and totally forgot. So I'm going to share it now. And it was, during when we didn't have an episode airing. And I put up a poll and I said, who is your favorite ship of season 2? I know you're so excited about that.
Yes, yep.
So I gave 4 options, Ben and Hannah, Magic and Beth, Ian and Rachel, or Addison and Tom. And it's no surprise who won that poll. And I did combine the answers both on the Twitter poll and the Instagram poll that I released. And we ended up with a grand total of 75% of the votes going to Ben and Hannah.
I was among that 75%. I voted in your poll.
19% for Magic and Beth. Mm-hmm. 6% for Ian and Rachel. And not a single vote for Addison and Tom.
Well, gee, that's kind of sad.
That's a little sad. And I bet you if I reran this poll after 208 airs and people have had a chance to watch this episode, I'm betting that the results would be even more in favor of Ben and Hannah.
Probably. Yep.
Because we got some great Ben and Hannah stuff this episode.
Yep.
And before we dive into the episode itself, one more thing that we want to cover is that nominations are out for the 51st Annual Saturn Awards.
That's pretty exciting.
And Quantum Leap is nominated in 3 different categories.
Okay.
Great news.
Yes, that is awesome news.
Yeah. The first of which, and the biggest, most exciting one probably, is the Best Action Adventure Thriller Television Series.
Okay.
Kind of a broad category. But Quantum Leap is nominated against, this is a tough category, my goodness. They're up against La Brea.
All right.
Manifest.
I didn't realize that was this year.
Yeah, they had just during the year posted their last.
Oh, gotcha.
Because they did their last season on Netflix, so they posted that whole second half of the last season during 2023. Also up against Outlander, Jack Ryan, The Witcher, and Yellow Jackets.
Oh, okay.
So some super strong names in there.
I'm surprised La Brea got nominated there.
I'm surprised La Brea got nominated too, and I love La Brea. So shout out for La Brea. Good luck. You have zero chance of winning. I think Quantum Leap has a very little chance of winning against these titles.
I don't think so. I think my best guess would probably be Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets.
Or even Jack Ryan, I bet.
Has a pretty good shot. I'm not familiar with Jack Ryan
I watched
or The Witcher. I've never seen either of them, but it's exciting for me. We got La Brea in there, Manifest, and Quantum Leap, all three shows that I have, promoted. So,
yeah,
yay! But we have to root for Quantum Leap because that's the backbone of our fandom.
Yep.
We also have the Best Supporting Actor in a Television Series, a nomination for Ernie Hudson's Magic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's up against Jonathan Frakes and other Star Trek actors.
Well, that's a tough one for me.
Among some other names, which we'll have up in the video.
Yeah.
Right now you can see the full list. But it's exciting.
Yep.
Ernie Hudson, of course, is a big name. So
it's not that surprising.
So it's not surprising that Ernie Hudson's nominated, but it's exciting to have Quantum Leap included in the likes.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Jonathan Frakes is, he hadn't been really doing much acting for a long time. Right. He was more of a director than anything else. So, I mean, that's a tough one for me because I'm a big fan of both actors. Yeah. And their work. So either way, I would be happy with either of those results.
I was telling you off before we started recording, like Star Trek, there's so many different Star Trek series happening right now, and they're nominated in like almost every category throughout the Saturn Awards. So we're not going to cover all of the categories. I'm just mentioning the Quantum Leap ones at the moment. And the other one is Best Television Home Media Release.
Okay.
And Quantum Leap Season 1 was nominated.
All right.
Yeah, so because Season 1 came out on home media.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
It's a weird category, right?
So it's like DVD release?
I think DVD release.
DVDs, Blu-rays,
right.
Such and such.
Yeah, so Season 1 was nominated for that, Best Home Release.
Oh, okay.
Which is good.
Yeah,
that's
good news.
In addition to the Quantum Leap, I'm just going to mention really fast, but we'll cover this more in our From video. One of the other shows we cover, which is From, is also in this kind of genre grouping that the Saturn Awards cover.
Yep.
And it has 2 nominations, which I think is even more exciting and surprising than Quantum Leap getting nominations because, Quantum Leap is still a big name.
Right. Whereas From is more of a niche
From
show.
is, like, most people haven't even heard of From. It's on MGM Plus, and it has nominations for Best Horror Television Series.
Okay.
As well as Best Actor in a Television Series for Harold Perrineau.
Yep. Okay.
And so that's exciting. We'll talk about that more when we do a From video.
Right.
Which actually is probably already up on our channel.
Yes.
If you're hearing this. So if you're interested in that, go back and watch that video.
Yep.
And that's all I have to say about the Saturn Awards. They actually, I didn't think I mentioned, they air on February 4th. They're going to be live streamed on Electric Now. So February 4th, we'll have all of the winners at that point.
Sweet deal.
And I'm sure we'll record something.
Yep.
In response to that.
More than likely.
Okay. So, Quantum Leap.
All right.
After all that, 208, Nomad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, your thoughts on this week's episode.
Okay, so this shouldn't be a surprise coming from me. I don't love action, adventure, the whole spy story of it all is not my cup of tea.
I would say that the actual mission part of this episode is not something I actually cared about. I actually cared about the surrounding stuff, like the Hannah and Ben stuff,
right?
The scenes back at the project.
Yeah, there was a lot of important, good stuff going on. But I feel like the mission distracted me from all of that stuff that I'm trying to grab onto.
Right.
Ben was excited to be a spy. I wasn't excited for Ben to be a spy.
No.
I'm not interested in
I don't even think
James Bond stories.
I mean, from I don't even think the writers of this episode were all that concerned with the mission of the actual mission.
I had told you this after I watched the first time, which I watched just to watch it. I was like, I don't know how to take notes on this. I don't know how to talk about this because I can't follow what's happening.
Right.
I'm just not. My brain can't handle this.
Yeah, I had a similar problem.
So my second watch through, when I was actually taking my notes, it went very slow. I was pausing after every line to compose my thoughts on what was just said in that line. And I'm sure we're going to be like all over the place trying to talk about this one. I do have a disclaimer. I am very sure I'm going to get every name wrong in this one.
Okay.
I'm going to double that for you and apologize on your behalf.
Well, I appreciate that.
So yeah, this was filmed in Egypt. We have a lot of Egyptian guest appearances. I will make an attempt to say the names of all of the people that appeared in this episode.
Yep.
I will say them all wrong.
Okay. Well.
And the characters' names as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to give it my best shot.
And, your efforts, as always, are appreciated. Do we have anything else to say before diving into this thing?
I had a funny little thing that happened while I was taking these notes.
Okay.
So halfway, and again, this took me forever to take notes on. Halfway through, I took a break, and my husband and I had a dinner break, okay? And we sat down, and we're currently watching Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Okay.
Which was something I watched religiously when I was a child. He'd never seen it before. That's typical, right? Adam's never seen anything that wasn't Star Trek related until I made him watch it. So we're going through and we're doing Are You Afraid of the Dark rewatch. So it's little kids horror, right?
Right.
And the episode that we happened to be on was an episode about a mummy from Egypt.
Okay.
And I was like,
I vaguely remember that.
I was like, oh, that's, that's funny because I'm in the middle of taking notes about an Egypt episode of Quantum Leap. And then we're watching the episode. The mummy is Princess Mina.
Okay.
And Mina, of course, is the name of the hotel in this episode.
Oh,
This is the Mina House Hotel, which I actually have a lot to say about. Once we get a little bit into this, I will give us some more details about the Mina House, which was named after an Egyptian god. Not the same character, from what I could tell, because I then looked into this. I was like, is this literally about the same person? Because that would be really weird. But the Mina character from Are You Afraid of the Dark is fictional.
Gotcha.
So that woman Mina is different than
the god
Mina that is, an actual part of the Egyptian history lore.
Okay.
So, not exactly that they're the same person, but I still thought that was like a super crazy synchronicity that I'm in the middle of taking these notes. I had just done all this research on the Mina House. And then it's like, oh, look, we're watching an episode about an Egyptian mummy named Mina.
That's funny.
It was a little weird. And it was like, yep, that's my cue to get back to work and go take my notes.
Right. Get back to work, Stacie. The television is telling you.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Did Ben and Hannah sleep together in this episode? Is that what we were supposed to get out of this? Because I was left unsure.
I am also unsure on that point. I think it was sort of implied, but it's a very weak implication.
Yeah, I really want to know what people think, and possibly we'll get that from some of the interviews that come out after the episode airs. But I feel like I didn't get that the first time I watched the episode. And then when I watched it again and I'm taking the notes, I'm like, oh, wait, she's in a bathrobe now and he's in a tank top.
Right.
Like, are we supposed to think something just happened?
Right.
And I kind of think that's the case.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It could just be an indication that Ben spent the night and nothing happened, but I don't know. How likely is that? I'm not sure. But I guess we'll see what our audience thinks on that one.
And I also thought it was funny that, that came up because in the last week, in the Quantum Leap discussions on Facebook, the topic had come up in a chat of talking about how, Sam was always
sleeping around.
Well, how he was trying not to.
Right.
Especially early on. And then discussions on, well, how many people did he actually end up sleeping with? Because they make you think, he kissed a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kisses. And he fell in love a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end of the day, we only know that he actually slept with 4 people.
Yeah.
And, I won't get into all that now, but it was like, well, the opening credits focusing on his kisses kind of gives you a wrong impression, that Sam was this Boy Scout and avoided having intimacy with these people in most cases.
Yeah.
And the discussion was, well, what's it like, for Ben?
Right.
Especially now that, he's not with Addison. And when is he going to actually, cross that line?
Well, if it's going to be anybody at this point, it's going to be Hannah.
Yeah.
But, we shall see about that. I mean, if it hasn't already happened.
Right. And that's where I was like, wait, are we supposed to think that happened just now?
Right. Yeah, they're very vague on that detail, I believe. But
well, regardless, they're saying I love you now.
Right.
So,
and that's yeah. After 3 weeks together,
he has a inner time girlfriend.
Aw.
I'm willing to say that they're pretty official at this point.
Yeah.
And that makes me so sad for her.
Yeah, that would be,
you're gonna spend your whole life just holding out, waiting for him.
I think I brought up the time traveler's wife before, and I think that now even more applies here.
And I think that in one scene, we'll get there when we do our scene by scene, but I think when he was resisting her at one point, and he was like, "For these are the reasons I can't do this," no, I really happy to know you, and I'm kissing you, but we can't do this because I don't want that for you. And he didn't use all those words, but you can tell that's what he means. He doesn't want her to sit around waiting for him. He wants her to go live her life. Mm-hmm. And
because for all he knows, he can never show up again.
Right. Yeah. Or this was 6 years.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's horrible. Like, did you
horrible.
Not live your life in those 6 years?
Yeah.
Are you resisting like having an actual relationship with somebody because like you met this time traveler that you're infatuated with?
Yeah. It's.
I mean, come on.
I mean, I hope that's not the case, but I think we should probably just. Unless there's more, is there more?
Let's go.
All right.
Let's go ahead. Although I do have lots of little details, especially at the beginning, so I might stop you and slow you down a few times.
All right, that's fine. Ben leaps into Egypt by the pyramids. His name is Michael.
Yeah, he's in a carriage, like a camel-driven carriage.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to call that thing, to be honest with you. So, he's being driven by this camel carriage thing. He gets out saying he wants to go to Cairo, probably because that's a detail he gets from the ID that he looks at.
Yeah. So, and he gives the Wizard of Oz reference. We heard that at the end of the last episode. We're getting those quite frequently now, Wizard of Oz references. And he looks at the driver's license, and it's from the driver's license that we got his name, Michael Allison. Michael is from Fairfax, Virginia. He's a white male, 5'11", brown hair, brown eyes, born on June 10th, 1934.
Ooh,
got all that from the ID.
Wow.
And at first I was like, is there some significance to that date? And I was looking it up. It's not. I was like, is that Dean Stockwell's birthday or, Donald Belisario? And nope, they were all off by a little bit.
Gotcha.
So, I don't think there's any significance to that. But it was there on the ID card.
Okay.
And it was right when he looked down after seeing the ID card, we see Michael's Amex kind of tucked into his wallet and a key to room 212 at the Mina House Hotel in Cairo.
Gotcha. So that's what
it was from that hotel key is why he says, I have to go back to Cairo. Cairo. Wow.
Yeah.
And this carriage driver is played by, here we go, Shaban Saeed Kabt Alani.
Okay.
I got at least 2 of those right, I think.
Gotcha.
And the driver simply like points him in the right direction of Cairo instead of being like offering to give him a ride.
Right.
So this is clearly like this is a very local trip, right? He's just staying right at the pyramids. And I don't know, I was like, Ben, why are you assuming that you need to go back to the hotel right now?
Yeah, I wasn't totally clear on that.
Yeah, like why are you not exploring this area a little bit first, staying on this carriage ride and seeing where it's taking you, what's happening? You have no idea what you just leapt into, and your first response is, I need to make a change right now.
He seems to be right about where he needs to go, and I thought maybe there was something in that image that we saw of his wallet that maybe a note or something saying he needed to go there.
No.
But I didn't see anything.
He just kind of was like, I gotta go now. And, maybe this is one of those things that something got cut. I don't know. But it felt a little weird to me. Like, why are you in such a rush to get back to the hotel?
Yeah, that was a weird moment. Like, how do you know that what you need to change isn't right here?
Right.
Or
you could have been as simple as you need to do something right here and then you're done.
Right.
Maybe he didn't want to do something right here and be done because, hey, you're in Egypt.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I see that logic. So he gets out and starts walking. He waves down a man driving a scooter who charges him $20 in American to get to Cairo.
Yeah. And that $20 in 1961, I looked it up, it would be worth $200
Yikes.
Today.
That is expensive.
And insurance and helmet not included.
Right. The screen flashes 1961. Presumably... Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I had this note about, like, he knows to come here from information as well, but you've disproved
and that the motorcycle driver was played by Ahmed Khalid Mohammed.
Okay.
And so he gets this ride to the hotel. And again, we know from the key, this is the Mina House Hotel. So let me take a sip of water, then I'm going to tell you about Mina House.
Okay, let's do this thing.
So Mina House is a real hotel.
Okay.
And that's where I started. Was like, oh, is this a real place? Let me look it up. What a rabbit hole that sent me down.
Okay.
The Mina House Hotel is a very famous hotel.
Okay.
And it was first built in 1869 as a personal retreat and hunting lodge for Khedive Ismail Pasha. He transformed the building into a palace for the guests of the opening ceremonies of the Suez Canal.
Okay.
And then in 1883, it was sold. It became a private residence. And then finally, it was converted into the Mina House Hotel in 1866. And in 1890, Egypt's very first swimming pool was built there.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's significant.
The very first
swimming pool in all of Egypt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was at the Mina House Hotel. And this hotel housed royalty and diplomatic guests from around the world. There were princes and kings and queens and Richard Nixon, all kinds of names, and I didn't write the names down, but there was a lot. This was a very, very posh place to be.
Okay.
And it was used as headquarters for the Australian and New Zealand forces during World War I. And then at the end of the war, it was turned into a hospital. And then again in 1943 during World War II, it was turned into a hospital for soldiers. And then by this leap date in 1961, it would have been nationalized property of the Egyptian government.
Gotcha.
They had taken it over for a period of, I didn't write that down, I want to say it was about a 20-year period. It was occupied by the government. And it's currently still in operation.
Cool.
And it is still owned by the government, actually, but it's being managed by a Marriott.
Okay.
So it's a Marriott now.
Okay.
It's the Marriott Mina House.
Gotcha.
In today's world. And I really think that this motorcycle driver ripped Ben off. I mean, if we didn't think that already, charging him $200 in today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
The actual Mina House Hotel is only a 10-minute walk from the pyramids.
Oh, okay.
So, that was exaggerated,
right,
for the purpose of this episode. But the fact that we're using an actual hotel that's, the whole point of it is it's the closest thing to the pyramids.
So
I thought that was just kind of funny to think about, like him getting on this motorcycle and the guy's like, okay, we're here. And he's like, wait, what? Like, I thought you were taking me an hour away.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So he really got ripped off.
He really got ripped off. It's a 10-minute walk. And that's kind of the appeal of this hotel is it's basically as close as you can get for commercialized like places to the pyramids.
I'm sure it's pretty expensive then.
It looks pretty. I didn't actually look at the rates, but yeah, it's a luxury, high-end, super elite place.
Definitely something I probably wouldn't be able to afford.
Yeah.
Okay, so he ends up meeting with... You're done, right?
Actually, one more thing. So before he meets, we get this exterior shot of the hotel. And I was like, oh, is that the actual Mina House? It's not.
It's not?
It's not. So even though portions of this episode were filmed on location in Egypt... the exterior shots that we see of the Mina House is actually Castle Green, which is in Pasadena, California.
Oh, okay.
And I was able to figure that out using like Google image search.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Your talents are seriously misapplied.
I know, right? I'm good at this.
Yep.
Like researching stuff. But the architecture is very similar in style to the Mina House. I'm guessing that either, the current Marriott building has just been updated too much to get that aesthetic they were looking for what it would have looked like in 1961. Or perhaps they just didn't have permission to film there. So they got all of these exterior shots in California.
Makes sense.
But it does look very comparable. When I was first looking at it and I'm looking at pictures of the meeting house, I'm like, oh, this could be part of that property. And then I was like, let me do an image search on this actual image. And I was like, oh, it's very clearly the castle, the castle green.
All right, so that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we end up inside the hotel.
And he meets Shepard Barnes, station chief, and he's played by Lou Diamond Phillips, who at one point was very hot in Hollywood. He's less so nowadays, but he's still getting pretty regular work. He was in a Denzel Washington film, Courage Under Fire, the big hit. That's with Marky Wahlberg, and Avery Brooks, who played Captain Sisko on Deep Space Nine, was also in that movie. He was in a miniseries, The Triangle, which was interesting, and he was also in an episode of the rebooted Twilight Zone. That was like way back. He also directed an episode of Fear the Walking Dead. We spent quite a bit of time trying to look for an appearance in Fear the Walking Dead because you thought he was
I remembered it wrong. Yeah. I knew he had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Because we had actually had a tweet exchange.
Yes.
Yeah, during that time. It was a while ago, so my memory was a little broken on it. And he was in Stargate Universe.
Right, yes.
Which is something that I watched and knew him pretty well from.
Yep. So it's all mysterious. There's a bunch of spy stuff. It's Ben's first assignment, which is good news because he won't be recognized. But if he's captured, bad things will happen.
Yeah. And Lou Diamond Phillips' character, his name is Barnes. He asked Ben if he had reconned the site, and Ben surmised that he's talking about Giza, which he just got back from. And he's like, yeah, I did. Well, Ben, you really didn't.
Right.
You just kind of left.
Yeah, yep.
You didn't look up anything at that site.
So Barnes ends up flipping over a coaster, which has a number on it, and Ben thinks this is all very cool.
Yeah.
Credits.
And Barnes had told him he's supposed to be meeting his source at 1 p.m. today.
Yes. Yep.
At the Giza, which is where the pyramids are. And to find someone with a pink pocket square.
Right.
That's who he's supposed to be looking for, which is all those little details that I just had such a hard time holding on to the first time we're watching this. I'm like, what? What are we doing?
See, I didn't even bother
Who are
trying,
you?
But...
And also, in this scene where he's first sitting down to talk to Barnes, we see the sign for the hotel stating, welcome the International Convention of Applied Science.
Oh.
And it says the convention is from May 3rd through 7th, 1961, which tells me we are in one of those dates, even though officially we were only told 1961. It's definitely May, and it's somewhere between the 3rd and the 7th because this convention is happening. And immediately when seeing that sign, I squealed because I'm like, oh, now I know Hannah's actually here.
Right.
I had known she was going to be in the episode, but I had kind of thought, like, oh, he's going to call her or something, and we're going to have a phone conversation and have her on the screen. But the fact that she's actually, in Egypt, and they are, coincidentally running into each other again. It's not him trying to find her. As soon as we saw this sign, I'm like, oh, she's here for a science convention, and that's just awesome. Like, it's a legit, honest reason of why she's in Egypt. And it made a lot of sense.
After the credits, Tom and Addison end up enjoying a breakfast together, which they are cooking. It's all romantic until Tom gets a call on a secure line. As she looks around for something, she accidentally finds what looks to be an engagement ring. Yeah, she is looking for caraway, because Tom had been giving her all these spices. I get the impression this is his place, and she's moved in with him. And at the first, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, this is his place. But then by the end of the episode, when he says to her, welcome home. So she's living there. Yep. But it's definitely like she moved in with him, right? She's looking around the kitchen. She doesn't know where things are. Right. So I don't even think she's lived there very long. Probably not. And speaking of which, where did Ben's stuff end up going? Did she end up putting that stuff in storage? I know, right? Like, their place is gone. Right. Yeah, where's his things? That's a great question. Like, they thought he was dead. Right. Yeah, so hopefully they held on to some of his stuff. Yeah, let's hope. But yeah, she was looking for the caraway and finds the diamond engagement ring in a drawer. Yep. I'll have some things to say about that later. I have that more towards the end in my notes. But, okay.
But she's a little freaked out by that.
Yeah, she basically spent a lot of her problems in this episode is related to that, whether she's saying it or not.
Yeah.
But Tom is called away to DC, and Addison goes to the project and tells Ian, who's really excited. Addison doesn't seem that excited, and Ian points that out. Jen appears to ask what the two of them are talking about. They both give different answers, which is, very smooth.
Yeah, they're totally trying to lie to Jen, and don't want Jen to know about the ring.
And Jen's like, yep, deception noted. I know you guys are lying, because that was not very subtle at all. Ziggy found Ben, and she asked him to guess where. And of course, it turns out to be Egypt, which we already know. Addison goes to Ben. They admire the Sphinx, looking for the contact. So Ben just needs to make the contact, because in the original history that never happened.
Right. In the original history, Michael never made contact. That was the end of the mission, and that's that. So they assume, he's here to do whatever Michael was supposed to do, right? Which at this point I'm still like, I have no idea what's happening, but whatever.
Right.
And you know what? I kind of question at the end of all this, was your purpose even having anything to do with this? Is this really why you were here? Or are you here because of Hannah?
In which case, what would be the mission that causes him to
I don't
leave?
know, but I feel like every time we've met Hannah, it's been more about her than what we're being led to think it's about.
Gotcha.
Anyways, during this scene, I found it interesting to note that Addison made a comment, and she's like, "This is your first time you've left out of the country."
Right.
And Ben corrects her and says, "Actually, I was before, but you thought I was dead." So he's obviously referring to this took too long.
Right.
Which was in Russia. And I found this really funny as well, that this happened in this episode. Because this discussion was happening in Facebook also. And of course, I'm participating in these conversations on Facebook, but having to hold back the fact that I know this stuff actually comes up this episode, that's hard.
Yep.
Having screeners is hard.
Yes.
So we're 2-3 episodes into that now.
Yeah.
That we've had early access, and it changes the dynamic so much of what conversations we're having with people.
Well, I mean,
ahead of the episode's airing.
It was pretty obvious that they were going to be in Egypt in this episode.
Right.
They were hiding that fact.
So we couldn't, it's not like I had to keep a secret about anything, but it's just the fact that it's like, I've seen it already.
Right.
And I know this topic comes up specifically.
Right, yep.
But I have to point out the same answers that I put out to the people on Facebook who, I saw at least 2 different people in 2 different Facebook groups in the past week or 2 asking the same question. Why doesn't Ben ever leave the country?
Yes.
And the answer is
multiple times.
He has. Yeah. Not only in Russia, in 201, and already everybody knows 208's filmed in Egypt. Like, they made no secret of telling us all season long that we have an episode filmed on location in Egypt. There were other instances. The biggest probably being the earliest, which was in episode 2 of the series, Atlantis. He was in outer space.
That's a little bit outside the United States.
Little bit outside the United States. It's way further than Sam ever went in 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Also in episode 14, SOS, he was in the East China Sea.
Right. Yep.
None of that episode happened in the States. And in episode 17, The Friendly Skies, he was on a transatlantic flight going from London to New York, and the whole episode took place over the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
So in all 3 of those season 1 instances, outside of the country, which was specifically what was said here. He wasn't necessarily in another country in any of those instances, but he was outside of the United States. Right. And then again, of course, Russia is when he finally landed. Actually, he didn't even leap into that country, but he ended up, crash landing and spending the leap in Russia. And now Egypt. So yes, he has had plenty of chances to leave the country. In less than 2 seasons, we have 5 examples. Right. So he's actually
I think at least a few more than Sam ever did.
Right. Sam, it took him a while before he ever did, and then it was sporadic. I mean, he's been to Egypt as well.
He was also in Russia.
He's been to Russia. He's been to Vietnam. He had several instances, but never been to space.
Right. Nope. He was never in space.
So, yeah, I was thinking, maybe Addison caught some of the Swiss cheese memory that Ben lost, forgetting that Ben had left the States before.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely left the States in multiple occasions, but certainly, how can you forget he's been an astronaut in outer space?
Right. Yeah,
that was a big one.
Unless she thinks that's part of the United States, which By the way, guys, that is not the case.
Not the case, no. Anyone who thinks that might need a geography lesson.
I mean, I need geography lessons too, and I know that outer space is not part of the United States. But anyway.
Okay, so they're looking for Pink Pocket Square, and Addison spots him. They are at the Sphinx. And again, how cool is it that this is all filmed on location? Like, none of this is green screen. They are filming at the pyramids, at the Sphinx. And in an interview, I think it... I forget which interview it was, but like they said, we got entirely too close to these things. Like they were able to film in spots that tourists are not allowed.
Oh, really? That's
right now.
cool.
Like in the 60s they were. Like this is correct that the people were right up in those spots, right? But right now, like, you can't do that. You can't just go right that up close to these places. So it was really amazing that they got the opportunity to film that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Ben tells him that if something happens... Oh, wait. Oh, okay. So never mind. I skipped ahead of my notes.
So yeah, he's following Pink Pocket Square. Yep. And that actor, by the way, is Ahmed Ragab Mohammed Balel.
I mean, that sounds pretty accurate to me.
I'm doing my best, but I'm positive it's not good enough.
I haven't even attempted it, and I'm probably not gonna. So, but yeah, so he ends up getting a gun to the back.
Well, what he thought was a gun.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. He thinks it's a gun. And Ben tells her that if something happens, his backup will know. But the mysterious woman says that he didn't bring any backup because he honored her request, which might be, which might be kind of stupid. Yeah, but she backs away.
She says, "You're either very brave or very stupid." And Pocket Square walks away. He did his job of just, getting Ben to this woman. And we learn it's a Zippo lighter that she was holding up against his back. My beef during this whole scene is Addison is standing right here.
Right.
Should you not be doing more?
Right. She could go easily behind his back.
You could have been, like, Ben's following this person. Why were you not up closer to that person? Giving Ben, like, oh, there's somebody over here. Something's happening here. Oh, hey, it's not a gun.
Right.
Addison, I feel, failed in this scene.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since she's been a hologram.
I feel like she always failed in that respect. Like, how many times has a similar situation happened where it's like, the hologram needs to be doing more? You're able to see and walk and hear. I
kind of feel like some of the other characters actually did a better job being a hologram than Addison ever does.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't want to hate on Addison.
I don't either, but...
I mean, I have no problems with Addison. Caitlin's amazing.
Yeah.
No problems with Caitlin's acting, but... I don't feel like she does a great job hologramming sometimes. And, it's disappointing.
It is.
That I'm screaming and I'm like, Addison, do something. Just do something. Like, you can do something. You don't have to just stand next to him as an observer. Like, get involved. Right. Help. You have all of these great, assets of being this fly on the wall that nobody can see or hear you.
I think Tom did a better job with that in 2 seconds of being an observer in that Secret History episode.
So the woman introduces herself as Layla Adele, and she's one of our guest actors this week. She is played by Azita Ghanizada.
Oh, okay.
And Layla works here at Giza, as well as the Luxor and across Egypt as an Egyptologist and guide.
Yeah, and Addison ends up pointing out that that's actually the perfect cover for a potential spy. So Ben says he would like a tour of Giza. And Addison goes back to the project. Jen runs Layla's name, but nothing pops up. That spells spy. And in the back in the past, Layla ends up offering to give Ben the East German and Soviet operations, including the names of agents. And Addison has Jen run the code name Nomad. So Layla wants Ben to photograph an encounter with a traitor, but she wants to be out of the country before they end up making an arrest.
So the whole thing, okay, this is Layla's the person who Ben's here to meet, right? This is the mission. They were contacted by this woman who is a spy. She's a East German spy, and she wants to come to the United States. She's basically looking for asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange, she's going to tell the Americans all of the secrets,
mm-hmm.
right? She's going to share all of her spy knowledge. She wants out, and she's looking for the Americans to help her and bring her west, meaning to the States. And so that's what's happening here, is she's saying, I'm going to give you all the intel you want. You have a traitor.
Yeah.
There's somebody from the American embassy who's been giving me secrets. I'm going to give them to you, and in exchange, you're going to get me out of the country, because I can't just quit, right? You can't just quit being a spy.
Right.
They're going to try killing me
mm-hmm.
if they find out that I'm turning.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to tell you which guy on your side turned.
Yeah.
And we're basically going to do an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan. And like you said, she wants him to take photographs of the encounter. And that's supposed to be the proof to Barnes that her information is good.
So Jen and Addison end up discovering that Nomad, who was a legend, possibly a myth, was also misgendered, that it was actually Layla.
Right.
They assumed that Nomad was a guy, but it actually was
used
not.
Ziggy to kind of cross-reference every known thing that Nomad ever did, who, again, was never identified, with everything every place Layla's been. And they were always in the same place at the same time, so they've come to the conclusion Layla is Nomad. But my question is, how did Addison know to check that in the first place? Like, that was just, like, on the top of her head. Like, oh, she might be Nomad.
Right, I'm not sure.
Out of all the history of spy stuff in the world.
I mean, I guess she just really knows spies, and she had a suspicion. And
why is she not doing a better job in navigating that? Like, she should be doing a better job. She knows, she has tactical experience. She should have been all over that situation.
Well, she did refer to herself as the worst intern ever a couple episodes ago. Actually, I think it was even last episode.
Yeah, I think so.
So Ben meets with Barnes and thinks that Nomad got her info by sleeping with all the guys. This is an attitude that does not impress Addison any.
Yeah, we're getting a very typical 1960s chauvinistic response here. He's not only convinced that Nomad, of course, is a man. This woman can't be Nomad.
Right.
But assumes that, she's just a tour guide who sleeps around.
Ben is told to bug the meat so he can send the traitor to jail. He doesn't think that photographs is good enough.
Right. So, yeah, even though he doesn't think that Adele is anything, he believes that she's right. They do have a traitor, and if this is a possible lead, he needs to follow up on it. He gives Ben a bug and a transceiver that has 300-yard range, so he's supposed to bug the shop where they're going to meet and get it all on tape as proof of that this traitor actually is giving away secrets. Because just taking pictures of him, he could be like, oh, it was innocent. I was giving her directions.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the audio is going to be much more incriminating. This just the fact that they physically were in the same place at the same time.
Right. And Barnes ends up saying if he succeeds, he will get Layla out of the country.
Yeah, by tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's pretty
and
quick turnaround.
Ben's feeling pretty uneasy about this.
Yeah, he says he's wondering why he's nervous, and Addison points out because this isn't a movie. No, you're right, it's a television show. But,
yeah.
But also, if he fails, he and Layla will probably end up at the bottom of the Nile.
Yeah, this is pretty dangerous stuff you're getting involved in, even if I don't necessarily understand it all.
She keeps going on and talking, and then she ends up getting distracted.
Yeah, she ends up saying that saving Layla could actually end up saving dozens of U.S. assets' lives.
Ooh.
Based on the information that she's potentially going to give.
Right. And Ben is curious as to what this distraction is, and turns to see Hannah walking down the flight of stairs, talking to a man in slow motion. That's a pretty good talent for Hannah to walk in slow motion like that.
Now, I had already come to the conclusion she's there when I saw that sign at the beginning of the episode. Did you pick up on that sign?
I did not, but I already assumed she was going to be in this episode.
Well, I mean, we knew she was going to be in the episode, but I'd already come to the conclusion she's in this hotel for a convention.
Right.
And you missed that?
No, yeah, I missed that totally. Yeah. But I just knew she was going to turn up somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we see Ben flashing back to the the adventures that he previously had with Hannah in both Closure Encounters and Secret History.
Yeah, and he's hiding behind a newspaper when Hannah notices him looking at her.
Mm-hmm.
And she approaches him, immediately knows what's going on.
Right. Addison, by the way, nopes out of the scene completely.
Yeah, as soon as she saw Hannah, she's like, okay, bye. I don't want to be here for this.
So he's like, she ends up asking, are you Ben? And then he stands up and says, yes, I am in fact Ben.
He admits it. And you know what? This is proof Ben's not a very good spy.
No.
Because you're trying to make it so that, operatives don't know you're a spy. Hannah takes one look at you reading a newspaper and not only, picks up your spy, she knows you're a secret time traveler in somebody else's body.
Wow. He is really bad. So... yeah, I mean, she also says, oh, thank God, I've been asking everybody if they're Ben for like 6 years.
Yeah.
That's a really funny but really depressing detail.
Right. Every person you see looking at you sideways, you're like, hey, are you my secret lover from the future?
So they end up going to one of their rooms, and Hannah gloats about being right.
Yeah, she has this I told you so moment that you're like, I told you I was going to see you again.
Mm-hmm. And asks how he is and what he's there to do. He says the leap seems kind of dangerous, and she jokingly asks if it's more dangerous than what they went up against with the Nazis.
Right, which was, 6 years ago for her.
Right.
Obviously, this was a big highlight in her life.
I mean, it would be for me as well.
And, Ben says it's only been a few days for him since he's seen her, but nevertheless, he's missed her.
Yep. Ian ends up looking into her. Hannah, once again, is not a leaper. The leap isn't about Hannah, but Addison wants to know why the accelerator keeps putting them together. And when she says that line, I sigh. It annoys me to no end. This is not the first time I've said this. That when they keep giving credit to Ben's leaps to the accelerator.
Yeah.
Now, in season 1, that made sense because it was programmed leaps. Season 2, it makes absolutely no sense. And it especially doesn't make any sense because the project was shut down for 3 years. So at that point...
Well, it was shut down for a year.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So he was missing for 3 years, but the project itself was only shut down for a year.
Right.
But
yeah, he was leaping without the accelerator being on, is the point.
Yep.
But Jen fills us in on Hannah's history, what she's been up to during the last 6 years of her life. She got her PhD, and she now works for a lab outside of New York, consulting with the U.S. government. And that seems important because U.S. government, all of these projects are backed by the government.
Right.
And what we get at the end of this episode, when they mention a government project, I have a feeling it's got something to do with Hannah.
Okay.
A totally different project. I don't think it's a project we know about. But I think whatever that project is, Hannah was involved in somehow.
Okay.
Which is why this is coming up now.
Okay.
Because it didn't exist before.
Gotcha.
Is what I think. Anyways.
All right, yeah. So Jen says it's got to be a 2-person leap. I don't know what Jen means by that exactly.
She thinks that Hannah's here in a place where Ben came because Ben needs help.
Okay. That makes sense.
That he's not going to be able to pull this off without an ally.
Gotcha. Hannah tells Ben that she missed him. Ben says he did as well, and that it was hard not knowing if they would ever see each other again. Ben says he's been traveling through time, not having any real human contact, and he's not sure how to feel. She asks him how he does feel, and he says he feels alive. So alive that he's forgotten that he has a mission to complete and that he has to be somewhere in a half an hour. She offers to help, not wanting to waste a minute of their time. He doesn't think it's a good idea, but Addison appears to say maybe it is. Yeah,
we have this really awkward introduction between the two ladies.
Yeah. Ben gives her a look, and Hannah realizes that the hologram is there, and she's like, "Oh, hello, Ben's hologram." So Addison says, "Well, it's only polite to introduce us." And basically, Ben ends up introducing Addison as his only link to where he's from. She looks disappointed, but I'm really not sure what she expected him to say.
Yeah.
To bring up, oh yeah, she's also my ex-fiancé. That invites a lot more conversation.
Yeah, that I was engaged to a week ago in my time.
Right. That one, he doesn't have time to have this conversation. And 2, would you want to have this conversation ever?
Right.
Like, so I don't know what she actually expected him to say in that moment, but she ends up giving this look of disappointment.
Addison suggests that it would be great cover for Ben to pretend that he's here on his honeymoon. Yep. And we get more awkwardness when Ben's trying to convey this message to Hannah.
Yeah, he ends up adding like a different word than
he says that she thinks, if I'm with a beautiful woman, I'll be inconspicuous. And Hannah's like, did she say beautiful? And Addison's like, I didn't say beautiful. And he's like, okay.
As much as I wasn't really looking forward to the whole love triangle stuff, when I feared that might go that direction, this is humorous stuff, and it's well played. Ben ends up bugging the place and then sits in a cafe with Hannah. Hannah and Ben have a coded conversation, wondering when and where they will go next.
Yeah, and I found that really significant because we have these conversations a lot.
Yep.
Usually it's Ben talking to Addison.
Yes.
While he's actually having, an in-leap conversation. And this time, both sides of the conversation are taking place in the leap.
Right.
And it's Ben and Hannah having this emotional chat while being in character pretending to be on their honeymoon. And
yeah, there's a lot of layers here.
A lot of layers. And while Addison's standing there listening to it all, and it feels like this really helps show how Ben is moving on and dealing with the fact that, his relationship with Addison has changed and he's starting to have feelings for Hannah.
Ben says that they'll have the adventure of a lifetime, which to Hannah is what Ben is. The only problem is they ended up bugging the wrong shop.
Yeah, Addison's like, guys, I hate to interrupt this, but Ben bugged the wrong shop because Layla goes into the shop next door to where Ben put the bug. Hannah
ends up creating a distraction so Ben can give Layla the bug. Layla doesn't end up looking happy at all.
Ben says, I gotta move the bug before the meeting starts, but it's too late. The traitor came in right behind Layla. And the traitor is Agent Palmer, which we'll learn his name later. He's played by Juan Monsalves.
Oh, okay.
And Addison, so the three of them, Addison and Ben and Hannah, all work together and they do a great job. Addison says there's a back entrance, so Hannah goes through the front, pretending to be a tourist. She's crying, saying that the shop sold her a fake something or other. Ben is, crouching around in the background, trying to plant the bug, hands it to Layla, who looks super annoyed, like, this was not the plan.
She's really angry.
And Addison's actually helpful here, getting Ben out the door, being a lookout for when, the moment's right and the guy's not looking. And it was actually a pretty comical scene to watch play out. And it's very true that Ben could not have pulled this off without having an accomplice.
Yeah, absolutely. So Barnes ends up discovering who the traitor is.
Yeah, by listening to the recording.
And Barnes promises to get Layla out.
And Ben says, you need to get her out before you arrest Palmer. Because if you arrest him first, her cover's going to be blown.
Right.
And we're not going to be able to get her out.
Right.
And he's like, of course, this isn't my first rodeo.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Barnes.
Yep, you never trust a spy. So Hannah found that all very exciting. Ben thinks it was terrifying. Hannah thinks that all three of them make a great team. And Addison says she guesses Jen was right, probably about the multi-person leap thing.
Yeah.
Ben goes to the room and finds Layla extremely mad.
Yeah, she's waiting for him in his hotel room.
She wants this country, Egypt, to be free, but doesn't think that Ben is honorable, so she wants to call this whole thing off. Hannah ends up standing up for him, saying he saved her and that there is no better man, and this ends up convincing her. Meanwhile, Addison has a little light bulb go off on her head. She returns to the project and tells Jen that she knows why the accelerator... Yes, I'm extremely annoyed with this line. Why the accelerator keeps putting them together, and it's because they are in love. All right, so now this is suggesting that the accelerator is an AI-like intelligence, like Ziggy.
Right.
And I don't buy that.
And at the same time,
right,
Ziggy has been reduced to a search engine.
Right. Yeah. Basically.
Very unhelpful.
Yeah.
I
think I would get better results on Google than Ziggy provides sometimes.
Right.
In this series, anyway.
Right. And I have that in my notes somewhere. I think later when we're doing something with Ziggy, like I want our old Ziggy back. This is not our Ziggy.
Right. Yeah.
there's something lacking. Like Ziggy's still asleep somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Our Ziggy. Like, we need to wake her up.
Yep.
And we need to give her voice back.
Yes.
But
that is like an active campaign within the fandom.
Yeah. But yeah, giving all of this agency to the Accelerator, like the Accelerator is GFTW.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're trying to avoid using those words, God, fate, time, whatever. But by saying it's the Accelerator,
right.
I'd be more happy with them saying Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they're saying Ziggy's doing it.
Right.
I'd be okay with that, even though that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But to say the Accelerator is doing it.
So, I'm thinking this is one of those times where maybe the anti-woke crowd has a point in that they don't reference God, time, and fate because they're worried about offending people.
Right.
So,
I mean, they did mention before that Sam thought it was God.
Right. Yep.
And it was never settled.
Right.
Like, that's why it's God, fate, time, whatever.
Right.
Whatever that force is.
Mm-hmm.
But we're pretending there is no force.
Right.
Except the piece of machinery that isn't even the piece of machinery that has an AI in it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So Hannah and Ben end up kissing. They're saying goodbye. They think this is it for them, for this week anyway. Hannah wants to get more intimate because she doesn't know if she will get many more opportunities. But that's precisely why he doesn't want to do it. She calls him a nomad and thinks she might be his home.
Yeah.
And Ben says that he can't do that for those reasons.
Right.
And she admits that makes her love him more.
Yeah. So she says, it's been 6 years since the last time I saw you. If I'm lucky, I'm going to get to spend 1 week of my life with you.
Right.
So I want to enjoy every second that I have with you. And that's horrible.
Yeah.
And, he should be saying no.
Right.
He should be saying, I'm very happy to spend time with you. We do make a great team, but go live your life. Stop waiting around for me to be in some random body to see you for 5 minutes and then have to leave again.
Right. So Addison and Magic end up talking about the complicated feelings she's having.
Yeah, they're chatting about like the Hannah of it all.
And this is also about the fact that Tom is about to propose.
Right. She's feeling guilty for being with Tom.
She's happy for Ben. She's happy with her life. She wants to be happy with her life, but she can't help also kind of miss Ben. And you know what? This is one of the things that this season has done really well in acknowledging that these things are not simple.
Yeah, they're not black and white.
And it doesn't get into love triangle stuff, really. Not really. It treats this issue like they're adults, which is what a lot of television and movies don't do.
Right.
So I really appreciate that this season has done it this way and treated the situation like they're all adults, which they all are.
And Magic also talks about his reluctance getting together with Beth and all the reasons why that could have been a bad idea, addressing things that some people in the fandom had a hard time with. So they're addressing this. They're not saying, oh yeah, we lived happily ever after. They're saying these things are hard,
complicated, messy.
And but he says, you know what, we need to be true to our present,
right?
Because you can't just sit around and wait for the past to catch up to you or something like that.
Basically doing that is not really living life at all. And great scene between the two of them,
which is exactly what Hannah's doing.
Yes. Yep. And actually, I think this episode has the best project scenes of the season. I think a lot of the project scenes were kind of iffy this year thus far. I think this is the best example of the project scenes in the entire season so far, in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same. But, all right, so Ben and Addison wait for Layla. She says that she knows things have gotten weird and complicated, but she does love him and does want him to be happy, even if it means things getting awkward.
Yeah.
He tells her he loves her too and wants to protect the good things that they have and randomly admits that he likes Tom. And, we got that from, his appearance in Secret History.
Yeah. One thing I just found in my notes, I want to just go back for a second.
Sure.
When, Ben and Hannah were kissing earlier.
Okay.
Hannah asked him, like, aren't you worried about who's watching? So we brought up that whole awkwardness of people are watching everything they do on monitors. And he said no, they turn off the imager once they know that he's safe and things are calm.
Really?
So he's confident that nobody's watching because he's already resolved the episode.
I mean,
as far as
but
concerned.
Ian saw the kiss in Secret History, so
Right.
that's not true. So I think that's just a comforting lie that Ben is saying, because that's clearly not true.
Yeah. So, but things weren't all said and done because we do still have this whole pickup to get through.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they're here. They're waiting for Adele to come. She's supposed to get into this car. This car's only going to be there for 60 seconds. And if she doesn't get in, the mission's blown.
Right.
And he's really worried for that. Yeah, I love that he said he liked Tom because you instantly saw they had a connection. Tom and Ben would be great friends.
Oh, absolutely.
If they had just met in real life, outside of all of this.
Yeah, like I said in that episode, they had great chemistry right off the bat, and it was like, wow, this really shouldn't be working, but it really does. So yeah, they had great chemistry together. I could see them being the best of friends easily.
Yeah,
even in this weird situation.
I can see all of these people just hanging out and being friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I feel like maybe Ben and Addison are better being friends.
I agree. I have no real interest in seeing them get back together at all. I didn't know that I had that level of apathy until this season. But I thought I was invested in them as lovers, but apparently not, because I got over it quicker than I think Ben did.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So the car arrives.
Yep.
And we see Layla coming around the corner. A man steps out of the car.
Yep.
And we'll see this man throughout the rest of the episode. Based on elimination, I think this is the character of Eric.
Okay.
Because I couldn't figure out who Eric was if it wasn't this man.
Mm-hmm.
But I never heard them say his name. But we have a credit for a character named Eric, who is played by Francis Corbeil. And I think he's this guy, this bald guy, who is part of the Stacie.
The Stacie?
Yes. So he's part of the Soviet spy network people.
Gotcha.
So Layla sees him. She covers her head, starts walking in the other direction. And Addison recognizes that her cover has been blown.
Right.
And that means Ben's cover's also been blown. And she tells Ben he needs to run.
And he starts to do so. And they realize that Barnes was the reason for the blown cover. Ben goes to confront Barnes that he had Palmer arrested before getting Layla out of the country.
Which he told us he wasn't going to do.
Liar. Which, this is a spy business. So surprise, surprise there. Barnes calls it a win. Ben says, the heck with that, he's going to go and find Layla, but Barnes calls out that she is in fact dead, which Ziggy ends up confirming.
Yeah, so he says that the Stacie picked her up 3 blocks from where this happened, and she's already been killed. And Addison confirms, well, yeah, we found out that they did kill her.
Ben ends up, getting really mad, calling Barnes a coward.
Tells him off, completely.
He sits there risking nothing while people like Layla risk their lives. Barnes tells him not to go back to the hotel. They'll be looking for him. And, all these scenes from here on, are super great. Like Raymond Lee, when he goes to see Hannah in the next scene, it's it's an awesome performance. He does really well here. And you know what? I don't think he got nominated for a Best Actor, but I think maybe he should, especially for this season. But maybe that's not... Would that be covered next year? This season?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know a lot about how awards work.
Okay. So Ben goes to see Hannah, who's surprised to see him. He says emotionally that Layla's dead and that he failed. And says over and over again while hugging her that he failed.
Where we're at this point
yep.
is this iteration of Quantum Leap has taken the stand, and we were told this right in the pilot episode in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
If you do not succeed, you will not leap.
Right.
If you fail at your mission, you are stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
You will not go. And I don't know. I have a hard time with the fact that they're just like, oh, you failed. It's over. You're stuck here. We're Ben's committed to that in this moment. She died. I failed. So they're not stopping and saying, oh, we think that's what'll happen. Right. Maybe I'm still going to leap.
Right.
Or, maybe I'll get a secondary assignment to fix it and then I can leap. Or he says, I don't know what'll happen, but I know I'm not going to leap.
Right.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Why are you so sure that that's how this is going to work? Because Nothing so far has happened the way you thought it was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You thought you were going to leap home after your first leap. It didn't happen.
Right.
You were positive. Everybody was positive you're going to leap home after completing that original course of leaps.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen.
Right.
Why are you so convinced that this is how it works?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to a point where you're not even speculating there's a chance that you're still going to leap. In the original series, we kind of started with that philosophy.
We
somewhere
were really
in the middle, they very starkly changed it to say, well, you know that success of the mission has nothing to do with if you leap or not.
Which, when they started saying that, I'm like, really?
When? Right.
Like, that was never established to me.
Right.
So,
And then eventually it got to the point where Sam was saying, like, oh, yeah, I failed, but I'm still going to leap.
Right.
And, like, I want to say during the Evil Leaper episodes, like, he explicitly said, like, you know, well, we're going to leap, regardless of if either of us complete our missions.
Right.
And that's why they weren't sure which one leaped with the other one.
Right.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And it all came back to, like, well, we're going to leap anyways.
Right.
As soon as we pass the point of we can't change the mission, for better or worse, we're going to leap.
Right.
And I liked that we took a stance in this series. I liked that they said, if you die, you die. If you fail the mission, you get stuck. But I don't like that we're just like, oh, she's dead. I give up. It's over. It seemed a little too, like, final. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like they didn't even go back to discuss that rule.
Right.
Like, where you're just like, it was like, we're supposed to know this. Mm-hmm. And it's science.
Right.
Even though you clearly don't know anything about how any of this works, because that's why you're trapped in the first place, because it does not work the way that you think it works.
Right. Well, I did appreciate this episode for, like, bringing up the idea of failure, for thinking for a moment that he had failed and sitting in this moment.
Yeah. It was a beautiful scene, and they did a great job. Yeah. I was just like, I feel like we missed a step.
Right.
We went from, like, I'm about to do it and we're going to leap, to it's over and I'm stuck here forever without any intermediary, like, blink. Right.
Yeah. I see your point. So she suggests using his future knowledge for financial gain, and Ben suggests that they keep crossing paths so that when he did fail, he wouldn't be alone. Hannah says that what he's saying is that she is a gift for a job well done, and that's a pretty great compliment. She also says that he can still help people without traveling through time. She thinks that perhaps she messed up his great cosmic adventure.
Yeah, she blames herself for, like, distracting him.
And he first of all, he's like, no, stop that. He never saw it as great. He saw it more like a trial or a curse. Not necessarily as this great time-traveling adventure.
Right. And remember, he didn't sign up to do this. Mm-hmm. He didn't, join this for the great cause. The only reason he got in that accelerator was to save Addison. Mm-hmm. And that's the only goal he ever had. And now that she's saved, he doesn't have a purpose in leaping.
Right.
This isn't his thing. It was Sam's baby to go help the world. Ben never wanted to do that. He's just a science guy. Right. He was, he just came on to be a hologram and work in this project, and that's all it was for him.
Right. So we cut to the project scene, and this is a pretty great scene in itself. Magic says he's not giving up like last time, and Ian points out that this isn't the same situation. They know right where he is. He's just stranded. Jen says that doesn't mean that they're going to shut down the project, right? Magic asks about Tom's opinion, and he's on a plane and says not to tell anyone.
Yeah, don't tell anyone that the Ben is trapped yet, because we don't want to start that snowball of, let's shut the project down again.
Right. Addison suggests maybe they should just be happy for Ben. Maybe this is what happened to Sam. Maybe 1961 is his new home. And that's when Ziggy chirps in.
Yeah, Ziggy interjects with some beeping. It would have been much better if Ziggy actually said, guys, actually.
Hannah and Ben kiss, and then the phone rings. It's Barnes.
And this is the moment where I'm like, did they sleep together?
Right.
Between the last time we saw him? Because now he's got his shirt off. He's wearing a tank top, and she's wearing a bathrobe. Mm-hmm. And they're in this moment that's different from the last time when they were saying goodbye, because
Ben thought he was stuck here.
He thinks he's stuck here.
Right.
So he's like, okay, I'm giving in. Like, I have you, and I'm happy, and let's be together.
Right. And
something happened.
Yeah, I think I think it did happen. But all right. So Barnes said he might have gotten some bad intel. He thinks Layla escaped and is still out there trapped.
Right, because they're now going block to block looking for someone, and they wouldn't do that if they've already killed her.
Addison appears with her eyes closed.
Yeah, she pops in and she's like, I'm scared of what I'm about to see here.
Is anybody naked? Are you guys dressed?
Yeah, and you know what? Wouldn't she have checked the monitor to know what she's stepping into?
Well,
or somebody would have checked the monitor at this point. If you're really worried that like you're about to step in on something,
I don't know.
You should peek first, at least before going in.
Who exactly are you giving that assignment to?
I mean, if we're going back in, we're still on assignment. There's something happening. The monitor should have gone on at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but damn. That's pretty terrible. You know, they could have like started watching at any point and started watching Ben and Hannah's porn.
Right.
But, yeah. So originally Barnes never made that phone call, but I guess history was changed because Ben made that speech.
Changed because of that speech where he was telling off Barnes. And so, well, in the original history, none of this happened because he never even made contact with Layla. But in the version of the history before Ben gave that speech, what happened was Layla wasn't dead yet. But when Barnes found out, he didn't care. He just let her get killed anyways. But because Ben told him off and said, you know, you kind of suck at your job.
Right.
Barnes had a change of heart and now made a call to Ben saying, actually, I think we still have time. She's not dead yet. And that's why, you know, at Ziggy saying, oh, yeah, they did kill her. Because they did. It just hasn't happened yet.
Gotcha.
So if Ben does nothing right now, she does get killed by them. History plays out the same way as what Ziggy's recording. But it hasn't happened yet, so there's still time for Ben to change it.
Gotcha. So Jen looks for a place where Layla could be hiding and finds a place. And how are they going to find her with the... so they end up asking how are they going to find her with the East German police looking for her.
Yeah. And so Jen's working on a console, and she's trying to track Layla. And this is where my notes came into Ziggy. So why can't Ziggy get a fix on Layla? This Ziggy doesn't do that, right?
Right, yeah.
This version of Ziggy is just so much less helpful. And I need our Ziggy back because Ziggy was always capable of finding somebody.
Right.
Once you know who this person is, you can just find them. They're there. She's in these couple of blocks somewhere, and we're using like 1960s maps, and Jen is physically doing her own research trying to figure out where Layla would be. Not only should Ziggy just be able to get a lock on her and send you right there.
Right.
Ziggy should be able to do all this number crunching and figure it out mathematically as well, just like Jen is doing. So why is a person having to sit down and do this?
I don't know.
When we have Ziggy.
I guess it's to give Jen something to do. You know, some busy work.
Something's wrong with Ziggy.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with Ziggy, and I need them to fix Ziggy
maybe,
and bring our Ziggy
it's user
back.
error, and they just don't know how to.
They don't know how to use Ziggy.
Yeah.
Gushy didn't leave the handbook
the
behind.
instructions. Yeah, maybe.
And they haven't figured out how Ziggy works yet.
Nope.
I need Ziggy to get fixed because this is not our Ziggy. This Ziggy is nothing. Right.
Basically, might as well not exist. Ben calls Barnes, wondering if he's ready to go back to work.
Yeah, because so Jen has decided that Layla must be hiding at the Kalawan Mosque. And I'm sure I said that wrong as well. And now suddenly Barnes is ready to be helpful.
Right.
Barnes is like, yeah, I'm ready to get out from behind this desk and help save this woman that without you yelling at me, I would have been happy to let her die.
Yeah, this is, I think someone like Barnes would be quite a bit more jaded than this to not be necessarily swayed as much by Ben.
Yeah, so not only does Ben, succeed with what's going on with Layla, he's changed Barnes for the better. Made Barnes a much better person throughout this adventure.
So out in the field, Ben says he hopes Layla will find him. He's chased by agents. He fights one successfully.
Yeah, and that's that person who I think is the character of Eric.
Addison brags, saying he taught her that move. Layla appears. She knows Ben didn't betray her because she saw his face from a distance.
Right. She knew he was betrayed just as much as she was. And he manages to convince her that she's got to go along with his plan or she's going to die.
Right. Ben asks why... let's skip all that. Doesn't matter. The bad guys end up showing up, thinking they found her.
Yeah, so Ben screams,
right.
Layla, run! And it was clearly he was saying it because he wanted them to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is Layla and Hannah, who we had seen at the beginning of this getting off of a tourist bus, Hannah, they switched places.
Mm-hmm.
So they switched, what's it called? Like kerchiefs that they had in their hair.
Yep.
So that it was Hannah who was wearing Layla's scarf.
Right. So yeah, it's Hannah. Layla, meanwhile, is driving with Barnes, much further away.
Yeah, so
this.
the guy realized his car is gone, and we catch up with Barnes and Layla Adele. She's wearing Hannah's scarf now. They are in the missing car, and he's driving her to safety.
Right.
And they officially introduce themselves to each other. And again, we see that Barnes has been a better person, and Layla's safe. And we see again Ben and Hannah playing these parts of these honeymooners,
mm-hmm.
and doing this really weird, like, Southern accent,
mm-hmm.
like Texan accent.
I didn't know what to call that.
I was like, "What are you doing, Ben?"
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You're good at acting to be other people. You do it every leap.
Right.
Why are you suddenly putting on this, like, ridiculous Southern drawl?
Right. Addison ends up filling in Ben on the good news that Layla indeed got away fine, and goes back to the project, leaving Hannah and him.
And she was instrumental in dismantling the Soviet spy network in the Middle East.
Oh, did that actually happen like
good
that?
Stuff. I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about anything to do with spies.
Okay, I couldn't either.
And Hannah thanked Addison for her help,
mm-hmm.
which is a little weird,
right,
for all of them.
Right. Ben quotes Hannah saying, "Not to say goodbye, but to see you later." Ben says, so Hannah wants Ben to find her, so she doesn't have to go around, checking,
asking everybody if they're Ben, which I'm sure she still will.
Right. Yeah, she doesn't want to keep doing that with strangers because I'm sure she got a lot of weird reactions to that.
Yeah, and then they kiss goodbye, and I was really scared we were going to have this trope of, every time they're together, he leaps out during a kiss, and we constantly have the hosts coming back mid Hannah kiss for her to explain.
Right.
But they pulled out of it before he leaped, and she actually walked away, so she didn't have to, face the host coming back.
Mm-hmm. And that is where the episode ends. Oh, actually, no, it isn't.
We got another scene after he leaps.
Yep.
Addison comes home.
Yep, arrives home to Tom.
And he's preparing dinner for them.
He says he thinks they can handle anything.
Yeah, she thinks he's about to propose.
Yeah, that's
like, he goes over to, like, near where that drawer is, and she's just like, "Oh, this is it."
Right. But instead, Tom pulls out this really thick file that was from a fragment of a discontinued DARPA project.
Yeah, this is what he was called to DC for.
And apparently, it's a way to bring Ben home.
A way to bring Ben home.
And that is where the episode ends.
Yes, this is the fall finale.
Yep.
It will be at least a month, probably 2, before we see a new episode.
Probably. Now,
5 more episodes to go, though. They are in production, which is exciting. Okay. I want to talk about the ring and the proposal for half a second here.
Okay.
So the spoiler disclaimers.
That was already more than half a second. Just kidding. Go on.
Okay. So when we get the screeners right at the top, they say here, don't spoil the episode, but specifically don't spoil these things, right? These things are super top secret. Don't allude to them in any which way.
Yeah. Okay.
So there were 2 things in this episode. One was don't spoil that they might have figured out a way to bring Ben home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great. Yep. And the second thing was don't spoil the proposal.
Which never happened.
The entire
in this episode.
Spoiler alert was the proposal. Yeah. So now I'm at this point where I'm feeling like the spoilers that they're telling us not to spoil are now misleading to us as well. Right? They let us, the screeners, think that there's going to be a proposal this episode.
I rewatched the episode to make sure I didn't miss that somewhere.
Yeah.
because
there was no proposal.
Mm-hmm.
There was a ring. This should have said, don't mention the ring.
Yeah.
But they made us think there's going to be a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time it's over, there wasn't a proposal. So I feel like we were played a little bit.
Probably. They were screwing with us.
Do you want to know what my theory is?
What's that?
I think it's Tom's wife's ring.
Okay.
That he owns, has it tucked away in a drawer.
Right.
That she shouldn't have been in.
Right.
And found it. And I don't think he's trying to propose to her at all. I think that's his dead wife's ring.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I mean... He would have her ring.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, so maybe she shouldn't have leapt to that conclusion, even though I think most people would.
Yeah. I mean, that's a TV trope, too, though, that you find a ring that's not even meant for you.
Right. Well, hopefully it's not for some other woman.
I mean, it could be... That's the thing, is he's had a wife.
Yeah.
She's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Her ring exists.
Yes.
It makes perfect sense he'd own that still, and it would be tucked away somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you'll see within the trope, like, oh, it's his mother's or grandmother's ring that he owns in the event that someday he proposes to somebody, right?
Well, I gotta say, I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Alternately, I was thinking perhaps he's holding it for Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Could Magic be proposing to Beth?
Maybe. They are good friends. They get along. So, I'm actually kind of curious where this stuff with Hannah is gonna go. Because, I don't think we can keep having her just randomly show up and helping Ben on his adventures, and that's the only thing.
And also, if he's not moving linearly through time.
Yeah.
Like, we've set it up to the point where we've been told she's been waiting 6 years for him between each leap now. They've met 3 times, and there was 6 years between each of those pairings.
Yeah.
So 12 years of her life have gone by since she met him. So, this is something I was trying to wrap my head around before, so I don't know if it's going to make sense in words speaking them, but...
Okay. I believe
it leans itself to think that he can't go back and meet her in 1957, for instance, in one of these in-between years, because she already said she's waited these years.
Right. I mean, you can still call her.
Or can he, but because it didn't happen for him yet, it hasn't happened for her yet. Because he hasn't changed it yet.
Okay, so...
So they would still see each other linearly as far as when she knows it happened.
But it would mess up this leap if that happens.
Right.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't... So I think maybe he could call her during those times.
Because of the way that leaping works, that time travel works in this series... I don't think that the fact that she hasn't seen him in 6 years means that he can't eventually see her during those 6 years.
I mean... Because
the way time travel works in this world is it hasn't happened yet. He hasn't made changes yet.
But, okay, so if he goes to 1957, the advancement of their relationship in 1961 hasn't happened yet. So they're going backwards.
Right.
I don't think you could really do that. Because then you'd have to... do it all over again, basically.
Yeah.
And then it would mess up the 1961.
Or he'd have to not tell her who he is to not break their own timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not...
Maybe he does run into her, and because this already happened and he knows it hasn't happened for her yet, she'll come up to him and say, "Are you Ben?" And he'll have to say, "What? No, I'm Mark Jones."
Right. But, I mean, he would have to know that he's not further in the timeline. Because he might not necessarily know what time frame he's in when he encounters her. So, yeah.
It could get very complicated.
Yeah.
And I feel like to avoid all that, they're only going to have him meet her as he's moving forward in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that also really limits the telling of that story, because we're already... Like, how old is she supposed to be now? Like I said, it's been 12 years since she was a waitress.
Right.
She's, like, in her 40s now.
Right.
And you can only make Eliza Taylor look so old.
Right.
Without some serious makeup.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're running out of time to tell their story if he keeps moving forward, unless he keeps going slower. Like, it's May of 61, maybe we meet again at Christmas, just a few months from now.
You could do that. I'm not sure. Like, I don't quite know what they're doing with the story. I don't think they could just have, like, do this every episode, every time they encounter her. I think we need to do something else with the story to avoid it getting old. Right,
exactly. So, and the fact that she's a main cast member. Like, yeah, where is this going? It has to go somewhere.
Right. So I'm thinking either Tom or Hannah are going to end up being evil.
I don't want that.
It would surprise me if they didn't turn one of these characters villainous by the end of the season. But I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with the story.
I don't want that to happen. I do think that bringing up this project that DC had just found whatever this is, a way to bring Ben home. I do have a feeling that that's going to link us to Hannah in some fashion. Like there's been a lot of speculation. Sense. Oh, Hannah was involved in Starbright or in the original Quantum Leap or this or that. And I keep saying, well, that doesn't make sense because those things happened when Hannah was a waitress and Ben hadn't changed her course. And now it makes sense that there'd be a new thing in the realm of history based on stuff Hannah's done in her life. And possibly even, stuff that Ben ends up doing with her, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Or, okay, now I'm about to go in circles again and I'll walk away from that. But I think there's some link between whatever Ben has in that file and Hannah. I feel like there has to be some connective tissue between those thoughts.
I'm sure.
Because we have worked very hard to put Hannah in a position of super intelligent science stuff.
Yeah.
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
And to say she's consulting with the government in 1961.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that her research is going to come up at some point in time, especially because she's going to be very interested in time travel because of Ben.
Right. Now, the thing is, we're suggesting that there's a way to bring Ben home, which does give them cloud cover to end the series in season 2 if they are not renewed, which hopefully means that they'll give them the knowledge that they're not being renewed, if that's to happen. I hope that's not the case. I don't see why it would be the case. But
yeah, so as of when we're recording this, there is no news on season 3. We know they're working on those 5 episodes. I'm hopeful that when this episode airs, 208, before anybody's had a chance to listen to what we're saying right now, I'm hopeful that at the end of the episode, there's going to be a renewed for season 3 announcement.
That would be good.
At the very least, I'm hoping we're going to get a date on when those back 5 episodes are going to premiere.
Right.
And I'm guessing mid to late February is my guess, and I'm guessing Tuesdays at 10.
Yep.
Totally a guess. But I feel like we're going to get that date because other dates have already been announced for other series. And I feel a little weird about the fact they haven't given us anything for Quantum Leap yet. So I'm hopeful that once this episode airs, which for anybody listening to this has already happened.
Yep.
And at the end we'll get a next time on or not next time on, but coming in. I mean, I'm sure we'll get a coming in 2024 either way, but I'm hoping we're going to get a date attached to it.
That would be nice.
Of when episode 9's scheduled to air. And I'm a little less optimistic, but hopeful that it'll also say renewed for season 3.
That would be good.
Because I feel like we're at the spot now where they could make that announcement. They have announced a couple other shows were renewed.
Yeah.
Now, it's also totally plausible they're going to wait till the entire season airs before making a decision, in which case we're not going to get a chance to end the story if they do.
Well,
if they don't renew.
the cast and crew can be informed before we are. That's for sure.
Right, but if they're literally waiting to see the ratings of the whole season before making a decision, then that wouldn't be the case.
That would stink.
Which is something they're known to do.
Yes.
Is wait. And then that's when we get these situations where you don't get resolutions to storylines.
Yep.
And either way, with only 5 episodes left, if they're told like, okay, wrap it up, those scripts are already written. They can make a change for the last couple scenes.
Right.
But we're out of time for them to write a whole closing story.
Right.
So I'm really hopeful that doesn't happen and we get to have a season 3.
I hope so too.
I feel like the ratings have been, from what I understand, good.
Yep. We had the discussion last week.
Yeah.
It seems pretty solid.
I feel like there's room for NBC to continue with the series. I don't see a reason for them to cancel, but it scares me when we're looking at what NBC renews and cancels. I'll just say it that way.
Right. All right. So do we have anything else to say about this episode?
Nope. That's where we're at. And it's going to be a wait, unfortunately, before we see what happens next.
Yep.
For these characters. I don't think we have any new news about the coming 5 other than all the stuff we shared last week.
Right.
But when we do get like anything exciting come up, we will probably make a little video about it.
Short video. Yeah.
Yeah. If we have some exciting news to share.
Yep.
Hopefully about a renewal and release dates and all that stuff, we'll be able to share once we know it. And hopefully we'll have some other great content to add to the mix.
Yes. We're done probably with this series for the year. I mean, this specific, the revival at least. We might do some original Quantum Leap episodes before the series ends. We're not really sure what we're doing yet.
Yeah.
We
have a lot of stuff going on within our other series.
Yeah.
We have interviews lined up for some of our other series. Who knows? Maybe we'll get an interview or two lined up for Quantum Leap. Right now, we don't have anything in the works, but it's always possible.
Yep. So if you're a fan of our other content, you can rest assured that you will continue to hear from us for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And Stacie can be reached at?
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, you can join one of my Quorum Productions Facebook pages. I altered one of my old Facebook groups to now be the Quorum Productions TV podcast group. You can follow me on Twitter at Quorum Productions. You can buy something from the Quorum Production store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as ourselves. And of course, you can like, share, and comment in this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Quorum Productions, signing off.